GM, welcome to another Touchgrass podcast episode. Today we have Yannik on the show. You must have seen him on the Tucker Carlson show, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But KG, we finally have an overlap with a guest on Tucker Carlson. That's sort of a moment for us. But yeah, Yannik, how are you? How was? Let's start it off. How was Tucker Carlson? How was that experience?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Rashid and KG. Pleasure to be here. It was a lot of fun, right? I've been the only ever crypto founder on his podcast,
Yeah,
and yeah, I think to this day it's many millions of views across all platforms. Got tremendously positive feedback from a podcast episode talking about privacy, surveillance, and also shining a light on crypto privacy, right? Which is something that doesn't really happen in mainstream, I
yeah,
would say. So I think that has been tremendous, and what it has shown to me, I would say, is this enormous need and also enormous desire by normies, everyone, right, to get privacy, to be able to use privacy, and has really strengthened my vision for not just what I'm building with Arcium, but also what teams that are building on top of Arcium, like Umbra, who launched today, and others are building to bring privacy to the world.
yeah. And we've recorded an episode with Crew and Umbra. So if you're listening, definitely tune in and turn notifications on for that episode as well. Yannick, before we get into like the privacy meta as a whole and we talk about sort of the nuances between different privacy techs and what it means to build on top of Arcium, do you want to talk a little bit about your background? And, Arcium's been in the Solana ecosystem for a very long time. There have obviously been pivots and sort of change in direction in what you were building from the start to now. Can you talk to us about how we got to this moment from the start?
Yeah, so initially we started building what back in the day we called Elusive around 3.5 years ago on Solana. So we were a very early team on Solana, very early identified the need for on-chain privacy, especially when you have a chain like Solana, right, which provides high throughput, has, I would say, go-to-market wise, always had this focus on real applications, retail adoption, and now institutional adoption, which really makes the need for privacy quite tangible. And so we initially started building this CK-based privacy with Elusive. And yeah, people loved it, got tremendous amounts of usage, but relatively quickly realized that the future of privacy was something else. The future of privacy was overcoming the limitation of what I always call encrypted isolated state with encrypted shared state. So as a concept, what we are enabling with Arcium now is this ability to take any type of information, any type of data, be it on-chain, financial, transactional information, right, or be it actual data in the sense, encrypt it, have as many people as you want encrypt that information, and then utilizing Arcium, be able to compute over all of that without ever having to share that information, ever having to expose that information, while being able to then get this ability for the underlying secrets to actually interact. And that is what we are enabling with Arcium. Instead of requiring you to keep your secret to yourself, never being able to actually do anything with it, we now move it into a different dimension where those secrets can interact without anyone seeing anything. And what that specifically enables on Solana, right, is the construction of very powerful applications. Because now you have access not just to public shared state, which is this core value proposition of a distributed ledger, right? Being able to have one single shared state across the US and India, right? Everyone can just send a transaction, and we have consensus over that state. But now we can have that state be encrypted, and we can, in a composable way, switch between this public and encrypted context and run those computations on chain over everyone's data without seeing it. And that is what we're enabling with Arcium. And there's many different teams building on top of Arcium, and for us the focus has always been building building privacy, I would say, with a different kind of approach. So I think privacy in the past has really suffered from most people, I would say, especially within the crypto privacy space, right? Most teams and people being academics, not really thinking about products and applications first, right? And as you mentioned, you had Crew on your show, right? So what has been important for us is to support teams like Umbra and build technology that actually enables applications like that, instead of just building technology for its own sake. And I think that's also the story of Solana, right? Building technology, rapidly evolving, and thinking about how we can shape the future with that technology.
That makes sense. And before we get to talking more about the Arcium ecosystem and the projects that are powered by Arcium, I want to take a step back to sort of shared encrypted state. Would you say a lot of the other private C projects in the landscape build their own chains to enable an isolated environment, and that's how Arcium is different per se?
So building your own chain, especially in the beginning phase, has never made too much sense to me, to be honest. Because what you're essentially saying, right? I mean, I could have built Arcium as my own L1, let's say, right? So what I would be telling people now is, come to my L1 because I have privacy. And I think that is a difficult game to be playing, especially nowadays. I think there's a substantial amount of consolidation, and I think the actual battle that we are seeing right now, and I do not expect too many new L1s to be appearing at all over the next few years. I think that phase is over. So I think the battle that we are seeing right now is actually between open decentralized finance and traditional closed finance. It's actually like that. I think I'm currently in New York, and this week there was a digital asset summit. So I was speaking there, and it's interesting because there's networks like Canton, for example, right, who are not actual blockchain networks, who claim to have privacy but don't actually have any privacy. So there's those LARPer networks, and there's networks like Solana, who are actually decentralized, open, permissionless networks. So I think this final battleground we are in right now is between these two types of systems. And in order for decentralized systems to succeed, we require privacy. And so I see the role of Arcium to be serving privacy for Solana, and in the future, maybe other networks as well, right? But not forcing people to now adopt my network because I want to extract as much money as possible, right? I think that is a dumb approach that does not lead to actual product evolution, and that's what I care about. So encrypted shared state, however, could be provided in a dedicated network, right? That does not state how state behaves, if it's shared or isolated. What state isolation of private or encrypted state means is that you, Rashid, have a secret, KG has a secret, I have a secret. And by utilizing cryptographic primitives like, let's say, zero knowledge proofs, we can prove something about our secrets, right? Each one of us does that while we keep our secret private. And so then we submit this cryptographic thing on chain that gets verified, something happens. But fundamentally, the underlying information, our secrets, cannot interact. So when we want to build actual applications, like saying, okay, we want a smart contract to have a private, confidential, encrypted balance, right? Then friction arises, because then the question is, okay, but how can a smart contract now manage a secret, right? How can this autonomous thing with no trusted single point of failure manage such a secret? And that's where encrypted isolated state fails. And it basically has over the past few years introduced this this alternative mode where privacy meant moving away from the value proposition of crypto as a whole, sort of, and going into this almost Web2 traditional data management architecture. And so with encrypted shared state, we are changing that, where we can bring everything back to the core value proposition of crypto. And that enables just way more powerful applications, removes friction, brings better UX, and brings way better privacy.
That makes sense. Is there a developer learning curve in anyone who's interested in privacy between the isolated state and the encrypted state? The shared state, sorry.
So I think in an ideal world, that's the wrong question to ask, because you should not have to become an expert in privacy to be building with privacy, right? I think that is one of my core beliefs, where in the past you literally had to almost have a PhD in mathematics to build anything privacy related. And Crew doesn't have a PhD in mathematics. The rest of his team doesn't, right? I have a lot of team members who have that, I guess, right? We are building important infrastructure, but I think as a developer, you should just be able to, on a high level, understand how those systems function, and then be able to build applications with it. However, I think it is important to have still a base level understanding, because what we're seeing in recent days as well, just like with Canton, is I think a lot of LARPing taking place. That is also happening within the privacy space, and I think that is one of the biggest dangers to privacy as a whole, where you claim privacy as a property, but then you actually do not provide privacy. That's why I'm so proud about the launch of Umbra today, because it is actual privacy, right? It is actual privacy focused on enabling real world usage. But I would say that's also an issue, not just of developers having to understand it, but also everyone, basically, right? Everyone needs to some extent become more conscious, and it's difficult. It has also been difficult in the past within the traditional VPN, whatever, privacy space, where you also have bad apples. But I think over time those issues resolve themselves within the market.
Yeah, 100%. This whole, as you said, like there's so many competitors out there, and everyone is trying to build, because I think everyone realizes that DeFi, obviously, we have seen kind of resurgence in the last couple of years. Right now, everyone is after tokenization, obviously perps, and privacy is this next big thing, and everyone is kind of trying to attack heads on. But in your opinion, like, why do you think, like, because privacy was consensus maybe 5 years ago in the early crypto days, and right now it feels consensus again. What do you think led to this kind of resurgence for privacy? And as you said, your interview with Tucker Carlson, that did numbers, right? So many people, even outside crypto, kind of resonated with some of the messaging you shared there. Why do you think this kind of resurgence is happening right now? Is it because of AI? Is it because of anything else that you're kind of watching?
Yeah, I think you noticed something important there. I think there is huge resurgence for privacy, and not just within crypto. I think way too often we live in this bubble, and it is a very small bubble if you think about it. If you ever occasionally exit this bubble, you realize, oh wow, there's so many more people in this world that literally do not care about anything we're doing. They do not care. It does not affect their lives in any shape or form. And I think that also gives us a reality check where we are at, and what we need to do, right? So there's this resonance, because multiple things are coming together. I would say specifically within crypto, what has happened, and that is just my opinion, is that there has been some level of disillusionment taking place over the past few months and over the past year, and that has accelerated. And I think that also closely relates to what I just stated. The amount of people within crypto, I don't know, is constant or is shrinking, right? I think it's not exponentially expanding as it should, after the amount of time the space has existed, especially. And then you look at something like AI, which is scaling super fast. And so I think this disillusionment has led a lot of people to seek value in something like cypherpunk values, right? In a more revolutionary spirit of what is being built, instead of the 100th stablecoin, whatever, more efficient institutional usage. People are like, okay, is that actually what I care about, or do I care about the underlying properties of this technology that initially got me into this space? And I think that resonates with a lot of folks within that space. And I think that is something that has led to this resurgence of privacy within the space over the past year. There's many more reasons, but I would say as a whole, across society, there has been this increased awareness when it comes to surveillance and privacy because of AI. I think AI has really accelerated that, because it is happening on multiple fronts. So it is happening on the front of you utilizing artificial intelligence, and then those AI labs taking all of that data they've collected to replace your job. So you're like, okay, I do not want my job to be replaced. I think that is what resonates with most people. And then there's resurgence of the surveillance state, I would say, happening globally across basically every jurisdiction. You see laws being passed that increase the degree of surveillance, especially digital surveillance, and the restriction of digital freedoms. So I think there's a lot of things just coming together at once that really has led people to become more aware when it comes to privacy. And I think it could really be the inflection point of privacy awareness. So the way I always describe it is that before people knew about the germ theory of disease, they did not wash their hands, right? Nowadays, even a 2-year-old washes their hands. So this could be that moment for privacy technology, I think.
Yeah, I think it also a great way to resemble this for our audience would be the way that the iOS asks you if you want to share data with this application. I think a lot of people just default to saying no. At least I do. And the AI stuff has just sort of incrementally increased that. Obviously, a lot of big names.
And it is literally crazy, right? You use something like ChatGPT, and you're like, let's use a temporary chat, right? Will not be stored. And no, it is literally, if you look at the terms of service, they're gonna store it forever. They're literally gonna store your temporary chats forever. So there is zero privacy. It is the worst thing that could have ever happened when it comes to privacy. So that is also one of the reasons why I'm building Arcium, right? And why 1 year ago I acquired our largest traditional Web2 competitor, who've been working for many years on encrypted AI, because I think that is another of those I don't know, final battlegrounds where we need to battle things out.
Oh, so is the Arcium stack going to increase, like expand, like you're doing with the crypto, and then we'll sort of see more AI stuff coming out of Arcium as well?
Yes, powered by this network, right? So there's already people utilizing Arcium for that. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Let's definitely talk about, this aspect of the Arcium ecosystem. I think everywhere I either see powered by Arcium or I see the Arcium logo as an affiliate badge with a lot of people on the timeline. I think the way that you guys have built the ecosystem is interesting, and it's very non-traditional, where you guys are happy to take a little bit of risk. It feels a little bit more organic than what traditional ecosystem building is. What sort of has been the approach in building this vast ecosystem? And can you also talk about some of the applications that are using Arcium and what they're building?
So I think the ultimate idea behind how we've built Arcium is being authentic. And I mean, authentic for me has always meant just also having some level of I don't know, let's call it retardation on the X timeline. I don't know, at some point I just started putting purple filters on my pictures, pixelating my face, and then writing encrypted with brackets, just so it looked more interesting and funny, and people really liked it, right? So I think that is core to the Arcium community, actually. This level of embracing that, right, and taking something very complex, right, over the last 1.5 years, we have built the most performant and trustless encrypted execution protocol in the world, and that is very mathematics intense, and it would be easy to just slap a super serious brand on that, but I think actually something that organically has evolved from this community interaction makes way more sense, because at the end of the day, as we discussed earlier, there is an element of education that is required as well. So you need to structure it as a social movement, instead of as a traditional company, I would say, when it comes to privacy. So I'm very happy about the community when it comes to that. When it comes to teams building with Arcium, I think every week I see a new team building with Arcium with some new interesting use case that I would not have thought about myself, to be honest. And I think that is the position I want to be in, right? Where there's people actually using the technology to build new creative things, where there's people building not just traditional privacy applications, right, but are building encrypted capital markets. I think that is going to be a huge front over the next 6 to 12 months. Confidential, actual encrypted trading, right, within encrypted shared state, to have full encrypted capital markets, and then have encrypted smart order routing across all of those trading venues. I think that will be one of the biggest unlocks that will help us succeed in this battle against traditional finance-based fake blockchain networks, and bring adoption to actual decentralized networks, if that's something that we want, right? But I think that's also one of the reasons why I went into privacy, because it's not this boring area, right? It is interesting to be building in privacy, and you actually get the sense of, okay, what I'm doing here brings value to humanity, that's why I think there's also this high degree of energy that you can feel when you speak with a lot of people in privacy, not just my team and ecosystem teams, of course, but I think there's a high degree of conviction because there's a belief in our mission. Yeah.
100%. I think you talked about the movement, and I see. I mean, I don't follow, even though I don't follow Arcium just like every day, but every time I scroll my timeline, I see projects, and it says powered by Arcium. So that pretty much is like says that you're in the right direction, going in the right direction. And obviously, they are like we talked with Umbra team, obviously, and there's I think prediction markets using Arcium as well, some of them. So it's kind of awesome to see that all these new use cases with privacy embedded going live. Is there any approach you have taken for this kind of ecosystem to form? Because you've been live. I mean, you recently went live with your mainnet and stuff, but there's already so many apps that people are using and enjoying. Any advice for people building such ecosystems, and what was your approach like?
I would say being very hands-on is important, right? Shaping the technology actually according to the needs of the teams, and supporting the teams in any way possible, right? Be it go to market, be it technical support, be it strategy, be it marketing, right? I think you have to really embrace this role of providing infrastructure to other teams, that goes beyond just here's my documentation, do whatever you want with it, right? I think it needs to go beyond that, and I think, yeah, that has been important and is gonna be increasingly important in the future, I would say, for this entire space.
Awesome. Yannik, is there one application that you'd always envisioned built on top of Arcium that isn't built right now?
So as I said, I think encrypted capital markets is going to be huge, and that requires a lot of DeFi primitives to be built into this new encrypted realm, and I think that is this new frontier space for teams to be building in. So that is an entirely unexplored space today. There's literally maybe one actual dark pool out there on chain. There's nothing, right? If you see private swaps somewhere, I mean, Umbra has them now, right? But beyond that, there's literally nothing. There's no actual encrypted shared state applications for that. So I want to see more applications on that front, be it confidential trading, be it confidential lending, or be it actual smart order routing over encrypted capital markets.
That makes sense. Yannik, this has been awesome. I know we're getting close to time. I do have one final question. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you're thinking about encrypted AI? To be transparent, like this is not something that we'd researched before the pod. Like we wanted to keep it extremely centric to the crypto part. But now that we've mentioned it, I do want to get your thoughts on how you're positioning sort of the next phase of Arcium. I would assume a lot of it comes back to encrypted AI as well, as much as encrypted crypto was the focus in the initial years. How are you thinking about that, and how, as a founder, do you think you shape the ecosystem with encrypted AI?
So I think there's multiple aspects to it. I think there's the aspect of, I think specifically with encrypted AI, you have retail applications, privacy protection for I guess what we talked about earlier, right? ChatGPT, these kinds of applications, and then on the other front, there is a lot of very interesting governmental business applications as well. So we have in the past started working on working with some of the most well-established traditional players to be providing them with encrypted machine learning utilizing Arcium, and now there's some other cool stuff gonna be coming soon, powered by Arcium to protect everyone's privacy when it comes to AI.
Awesome. All right, looks like we're gonna have to come back when it's coming soon as live, and we'll talk more about AI then. But Yannik, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for the time. Very, very looking forward to all the applications that built on top of Arcium in the future. Thank you so much for the time again.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
thanks for having me, KG and Rashid. It was a pleasure.